Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Navajo Code Talkers were all about, and also to share with you some of the things that we encountered during World War II. Over 400 of us served as Navajo Code Talkers during World War II. And this was all with the United States Marine Corps in the Pacific. Shortly after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the United States was getting ready to fight back in the Pacific. Immediately they ran into one big problem. The problem was communication. They tell us that in any war, no matter how far back you go in history, communication is very important. Whichever side that has the best communication normally has the advantage. And in our case, after Pearl Harbor, the Japanese had tremendous advantage over us. Why? Because they were breaking every military code that was being used in the Pacific, making it very difficult to communicate strategies, war strategies in this huge Pacific area, where it takes days, sometimes even weeks, to go from point A to point B. And they had all that time to break your code. And they will then know where you started, what route you're going to be taking, and where you're going to be on what day and what time. And they would be waiting for us with their submarine. When we got there, they blow up our shipment of supplies as well as personnel. Not very good at all. They had tremendous advantage. We cannot strategize without them knowing. You don't want the enemy to know what your plans are. But they did. Well, a gentleman by the name of Philip Johnston was working near San Diego in early 1942. Read in the newspaper that the Japanese were breaking every military code that was being used by the United States in the Pacific. He, after reading that news in the newspaper, took it upon himself to go over to San Diego Marine Corps Base to talk with Marine Corps communication officers, suggesting why not use Navajo language as a code. The Japanese don't know Navajo language, he said. As a matter of fact, he said only maybe 2 or 3 people outside Navajo Nation know the language, so it's very safe and secure. Well, Marine Corps communication officers really couldn't understand what Philip Johnson was talking about. So Philip Johnson came over to the Navajo Nation, took 4 Navajos down to San Diego to demonstrate what he was talking about. They put 2 Navajos at one end of the building with a radio transmitter and the other 2 on the other end. They gave these 2 a message in English, and to send that message in coded form, Navajo coded form, to the other 2 at the other end. They compared the 2 messages, the one that was sent, the one that was received. They looked similar, but not exactly alike. But Marines, San Diego communication officers thought this had some possibilities. So they asked the Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, Washington, D.C., permission to try this suggestion made by Philip Johnston. Marine Corps Commandant, Washington, D.C., responded. This is what he said. No. We don't know these Indians, he said. All we know is what we see in the movies. When the Indians sees a wagon train, they ride around that wagon train shooting arrows. This is not that kind of a war, so leave it alone. Besides, he said, Marine Corps is a very proud organization. We don't want anyone wearing the United States Marine Corps uniform that might embarrass this proud organization. Just do the best you can. Rejection. No Navajo code. That was in February of 1942, just a few weeks after Pearl Harbor. Well, the enemy continued to move in our direction real fast, taking strategic islands that we need in order to get close to their homeland. Well, in April of 1942, just a few months later, the Commandant finally said to the United States Marine Corps Communication Officer San Diego, go ahead and try the suggestion made by Philip Johnston. Philip Johnston was not a Navajo. Philip Johnston's parents came to the Navajo Nation late 1800 as missionaries to Navajo. So Philip Johnston was raised on a Navajo reservation. He knew the language very well. As a matter of fact, he also served in World War I in Europe with communication unit. So he knows something about communication. Anyway, Marine Corps Commandant told San Diego Marine Corps Base to go ahead and try this suggestion made by Philip Johnston because the enemy was really moving real fast, taking islands that we need in order to get close to their homeland. But the Commandant also cautioned, saying that we don't know if this is going to work, but it's worth trying. Recruit only 30 young Navajos and don't tell them what you're going to do with them, because all military codes are top secret. And this is going to be a top secret project. No one must know that you are working on a military code using Navajo language. So when you go out and recruit, I was just going to authorize you to recruit 30 young Navajos. Don't tell them what you're going to do with them. Just ask them if they want to fight the war in the Pacific. And if they say yes, recruit them. And also ask the Navajo Nation to use the language. That's all. So, United States Marine Corps San Diego and Philip Johnston went to Navajo Nation, recruited 30 young Navajos. Just being asked, you want to fight the war in the Pacific? That's all. And they all say yes. So they signed up, they gave them preliminary physical exam. One dropped out, so there's only 29. Now we're talking April of 1942. These 29 young Navajos wanted to join the United States Marine to protect and defend their country. They were given physical exam, like I said, one dropout, So the 29 were bused down to San Diego. They were made into one platoon. There were several platoons going through boot camp all together. At graduation, there's quite a few platoons that were graduating all at the same time. Navajo platoon, 29 of them, plus all other platoons from other parts of the United States. And they were graded the best platoon during that phase of the training. They were all graded. The best one would be number 1, next one number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Navajo platoon, these 29 young Navajos came in number 1 of all other platoons going through boot camp. That got back to the Commandant. Of course, Commandant was tickled to death, saying, great, now process them through combat training and see what they do. Well, these 29 young Navajos went through combat training, and they all came out super experts on the weapons that were being used, sharpshooters. After that, they were then processed through combat training. Same thing. After they went through combat training, they were then processed through communication school at Camp Pendleton, California, near Oceanside. There they were taught all the stuff that goes into being a radio man or communication person. Learn all the different radios, communication equipment being used at that time. They taught us how to make minor repairs out in the field. They also taught us how to climb coconut trees up to the top, running telephone wires tied to the branches at the top. They give us spurs to climb the coconut trees up to the top. And they tell us, you have to come down real fast because the enemy probably see you, they'll shoot you. So unhook yourself and fall down. Before you hit the ground, rehook the tree. Well, that's easily said than done. No, before you even think of it, rehooking the tree, you hit the ground, and that's why most of us have bad knees. Anyway, every part of communication work taught us Morse code. Morse code went something like da da did it, da 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 did it. That was very much in use at that time. They also taught us how to operate different radio communication equipment that was in use at that time. These 29 young Navajos in 1942, early part of the war, went through all of that. After they completed, passed, they were then separated from all other Marines. United States Marine Corps colonel, a full bird colonel, now took over these 29 young Navajos. They were then put on a bus, taken down to the east side of San Diego, California, to a top secret location. These 29 young Navajos were not told what they're going to be doing. So all they know is that they're training to fight the war in the Pacific. Well, when they got off the bus at San Diego, at a building about a good size of a small hotel. That building had a high fence around it with razor wire on top, like a prison. There's a gate. Over the gate, there's a big sign that says, "Keep out, top secret operation." They had 2 guards at the gate. these 29 young Navajos went through that gate with the colonel, United States Marine Corps colonel, into a classroom about the size of this room here. The room had tables, 4 chairs to each table. In front of each chair, a writing tablet, pencil, blackboard on each side of the wall with chalk and eraser. Marine Corps colonel then told these 29 young Navajos, now we're talking April of 1942. Colonel says, gentlemen, you are Marines now, you're ready to fight the war in the Pacific. But before you do that, we'd like for you to do something else first. We'd like for you to develop a military code using your language. Wow, this is the first time they learned that they were recruited to develop a military code. And it's a top secret project. Colonel says, no one knows you're here. It's a top secret operation. Everything you do in this top secret classroom must remain in this classroom. You cannot take something out of this classroom, back out that gate to your barracks. And you're not to tell anyone outside what you are doing in this top secret classroom. You're going to be searched every day from the tip of your toes to the top of your head, making sure you don't take anything out of this classroom back out that gate to your barracks. A lot of instruction on the top secret project and how it must not be disclosed to anyone, not even another Navajo. Your parents, your relatives, you write to them or you talk to them. Don't tell them what you are doing. This is top secret project. With that, the colonel then said, here's a box full of sample messages that are sent in combat. Read these messages that are sent and see how you can send those messages in the code that you're going to be developing. The code that you're going to be developing must be such that only you, the 29 of you, will know what those code words are. Another Navajo, not in this top secret classroom, should not know what in the world you are talking about when you start using these code words. With that instruction, Colonel sat down, lit his pipe, and said, gentlemen, go to work. I keep thinking, what would I have done if I was one of those 29, 1942? I probably would say, hey, buddy, looks like we made a mistake. What is this now? Military code business, never heard of it before. Don't know what it is, what it looks like. And we're asked to make one. Well, they all thought the same way, but they, like all good Marines, whatever the officer says, you kick your heel and do it. So they start looking at these messages. And of course, they're all written in English, using English alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F. Immediately, one of them said, hey, we got a big problem here. We can't do this. They told the colonel, so, we can't do this. What do you mean you can't do it? Well, this is all written in English language, using the English alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F. Navajo is not a written language. We don't have alphabet. We don't know what Navajo word is for letter A or B or C. How the way we're going to send something? We have no words for it. Colonel said, relax. Just do the best you can. Figure it out. But we need a code that only you would know. So, one of them, of that 29, went to the blackboard, wrote on a big letter A, and said, okay, if we are to develop code words, let us call the letter A Belasana. Belasana in Navajo means apple. When we say apple, we're not talking about something you eat, we're talking about the letter A. I said, okay, it sounds good. So down there, notepad, A equals Belasana or apple. How about letter B? What shall we call letter B? After talking about it, they decided to call letter B shush. Shush in Navajo means bear, B-E-A-R. Okay, all the way down the line, letter C, masa. Masa in Navajo means cat. How about letter D, B. B in Navajo means deer, D-E-E-R. All the way down the line, creating code words for each letters of the English alphabet, and only they in their top secret classroom know that when you say B or deer, you're not talking about deers, you're talking about letter D. So if another Navajo not in their top secret classroom hear us say B, they think we're just talking about deer. But if you're a code talker, when you hear the word B, you write down the letter D. So it was very tightly held to just the members in that top secret classroom. All the way through down the line. Some letters of the alphabet, they had difficulty agreeing what to call, like the letter J. Eventually they decided to call the letter J Kelichuki. Kelichuki in Navajo means jackass. Easy to remember. We had a lot of jackasses on the reservation. We used them to haul water or haul wood or ride them to manage the animals we had in those days. All the way down to Z. Code word for letter Z, Beshtotlish. Beshtotlish in Navajo means zinc. We have zinc on Navajo. We use some of that in sand paintings. So now these 29 young Navajos in June of 1942 developing these code words, and only they know what those Navajo words represent. Every Friday there would be tests. They divide the group into Group A, Group B. Group A is given a message in English to send that message to Group B in the code that they had developed. And they write it down in English. They compare the two messages, the one that was sent, the one that was received, to see how close the two messages are becoming to be exactly alike. Test every Friday. Developing code words every day from sun up to sundown. Saturday and Sunday makes no difference. Working, developing code words. By the end of June 1942, these 29 young Navajos developed over 200 code words for everything that is normally used in military messages. They're reading these messages that were written in English. So, and tests every Friday. Final test, the end of June 1942, Group A, Group B, over 200 code words given to Group A. They send that message in Navajo code to Group B. Group B wrote it down in English. They compared the two messages. By golly, it's exactly alike, like a Xerox copy of the one or the other. At this point, the colonel said, "Gentlemen, we're going to be finished very soon. There's one part missing, punctuation marks. So back to the drawing board to develop code words for punctuation marks. A period, no problem, dachijin. Dachijin in Navajo means a black dot. Semicolon took a little time to agree what to call, but it was called dachijibetse not dead. Dachijibetse not dead in Navajo means a black dot that lost its tail. That was its code word for semicolon. Question mark. Aja in Navajo means ears. Question mark looked like an ear. All the punctuation mark code words were developed, memorized, back to final test. Group A, Group B. Group A is given as many of the code words that were developed, sent to Group B. They wrote it down in English. Now, the colonel compared the two messages. And they are exactly alike, like a Xerox copy of the one that was sent. At this juncture, the colonel said, "We're going to quit here." We got over 260 code words developed, memorized, and now we can test this code that you just developed in actual battle. Because everything that you learned, it was subject to memory only. We cannot take those words that were developed and memorized on a piece of paper and put it in our pocket into battle. It all has to be here. So the colonel says, "We're going to test your memory in actual battle to see how your memory works." So, early part of July 1942, Marine Corps 1st Marine Division was in Australia, getting ready to go on the first offensive movement in the Pacific. In August, they did. But before that time, 14 of these 29 young Navajos who developed the code and memorized it were sent overseas to join the 1st Marine Division to test the code that was developed in actual battle to see how well our memory works under enemy fire. August 8, 1942, 1st Marine Division landed on the beaches of Guadalcanal with 14 Navajo code talkers, 14 of the first group, 29 that went in. 3 weeks after the landing, General Vandergrift, commander of the 1st Marine Division, sent word back to the commandant saying, "This Navajo code is terrific." He said, "The enemy never understood it. We don't understand it either." He said. "But it works. Send us some more Navajos." That was the beginning of the use of Navajo code as the official United States military code to be used in the Pacific. After the Battle of Guadalcanal. Talking about Guadalcanal, one other thing that happened during the training at near San Diego, top secret training, the colonel and his staff responded to the fact that these 29 young Navajos had developed code words for each letters of the English alphabet. They were told, we have many English words that have more than one A, one B, or one C. Like the word Guadalcanal has 4 A's in it. That's repetition. And the enemy are very smart, very intelligent. They use repetition to break codes. So you cannot just say Belasana, Belasana, Belasana 4 times to spell Guadalcanal. Well, back to the drawing board. What do we do? Well, the only thing to do was to create 3 code words for each letters of the English alphabet. Like letter A, the first code word for letter A, Belasana, apple. The second code word for letter A, Tsemnes. Tsemnes in Navajo means axe, something you chop wood with. The third code word for letter A, Walachi. Walachi in Navajo means ant, A-N-T. So to spell Guadalcanal, the first A, Belasana. The second A, Tsemnes. The third A, Walachi. The fourth A, back to Belasana. They're all A's, but different code words. So the enemy listening in would know these are all different words, but to us it's the same word, but we use different words. So many of the code words that are spelled out usually have 3 code words for each letters of the English alphabet. A lot of code words that were developed, Navajos don't even know. Like battleship, code word for battleship, so big fish. How about aircraft carrier? Chili, you have one that carry birds. That would be the code word for aircraft carrier. How about submarine? Submarine would be called Beshlo ironfish or shark. Tractor or the anthrax. It would be chas in Navajo is frog. It can live in water or on land. So all these different Navajo words for different military terms were created and memorized. We cannot take any notes with us into battle. So after this Group 29, Marine at that time, 1942, only had 1 division. By the time the war ended, 1945, there were 6 Marine divisions. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Starting with 29 young Navajos in 1942. By the time the war ended, there were over 400 of us Navajo code talkers who went through this top secret Navajo code school that was developed by the United States Marine Corps. And also, starting with 260 code words that initially developed. By the time the war ended, we had over 600 code words to be memorized. So that's how the code was developed and became official United States military code after the test on Guadalcanal. And after Guadalcanal, every landing until the war ended, Navajo code was used. United States Marine Corps and Navy developed two communication networks. Navajo Communication Network for all top secret confidential messages went through Navajo Communication Network. All other messages you don't care if the enemy breaks it or understand what you're talking about, went through English Communication Network. These two communication networks work side by side in every landing, from Guadalcanal, Bougainville, Cape Cluster, New Britain, Tarawa, Macon, Coatzalan, Inuiatok, Saipan, Tinian, Guam. I was Guam on the tail end. After Guam, Palaloo, Rio Bad Island. After Palaloo, Iwo Jima, another bad one. After Iwo, Okinawa. And some of us were getting ready to do the last landing on the mainland of Japan, scheduled November 1st, 1945. That was the landing schedule. But two bombs were dropped in August on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So on August 14, 1945, just about 65 days before the last landing on the main island of Japan, the war ended with those two horrible bombs that was struck. Some Japanese in North China didn't want to surrender. On August 14, 1945, just a few days after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Japanese emperor called the White House saying we quit. So the war officially, in the World War II war officially ended August 14, 1945. But close to 1 million Japanese in North China said they don't want to quit. The emperor may quit, but we're going to continue to fight. So they sent 1st Marine Division into North China. Those of us who were going to land on the main island, we ended up with 6th Marine Division, and we landed in Tsingtao, China, to get those Japanese in North China to surrender. They eventually did. October 25, 1945, we had a separate peace treaty ceremony with the Japanese in Tsingtao, China, where they brought in all their military hardware, tanks, guns, artillery, everything, all dumped into the ocean. And they also were put on boats, shipped them back to Japan. That's sort of the story of Navajo code talkers, all the way from the first landing on Guadalcanal until the last treaty that was signed almost a month and a half after the official peace treaty with the Japanese on the Tokyo Bay on the battleship Missouri. We had a separate one a little over a month after that at Tsingtao, China. And at that time, they told us, upon discharge, don't tell anyone what you did, because what you did, the code that you developed is still top secret. You wait until it is declassified. And when it's declassified, it'll come on the radio and newspapers. So listen to the radio, read newspapers, and when it's declassified, then you can tell. Up to that time, you don't tell anyone what you did. If your parents, relatives ask you what you did, you just say, you were a radio man, that's all, nothing more. Sure enough, when we got home, parents and relatives say, what did you do in the war? Oh, nothing, I was just a radio man. Don't ask me any questions. In the meantime, we listen to the radio, read newspaper every so often. Nothing. 1 year, we kept reading, listening. 3 years, nothing. 5 years, nothing. We're still just a radio man. No more. We can't tell anybody. Well, after 10 years, we decided to forget it. We might as well just end up being a radio man. No more. We went about our ways. Some went back to the traditional way of living. Some went on to education, get their college degrees. But eventually, 23 years later, 1968, Navajo Code was declassified. We read it in the newspaper, came on the radio, media started coming after us, said, what's this Navajo Code business? I said, we don't know, we forgot about it. It's been a long time. Well, we all got back together and formed an organization called Navajo Code Talkers Association, and we began to recognize, oh, you're a code talker too? Yeah, you are. We don't even tell each other who was a code talker because there was over 400 of us. Some of them, we never seen each other. Some were in 1st Division, 2nd Marine Division, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We don't know who was a code talker and what division they were in because it's just the only people that we knew was the one we were with. And in each division, there would be code talkers with their headquarters, regimental, battalion, companies, and then also with Marine Air Wing, Marine tank units, and also most of the ships that are used in landing, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, submarine, everywhere. These two communication network, Navajo Communication Network, for all top secret confidential messages. And the English network operated by blue eyes, blonde hair Marines. They handle all that. We handle all top secret confidential messages. And it worked beautifully all the way through. We worked together in every location, front line, beach command posts, Marine Air Wing, Marine tank units, Marine artillery units, submarine, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and the main command ship, usually battleship. Inside that battleship, 2 tables. Around one table sits about 5 or 6 of us Navajo code talkers with our notepads and headphones. There's another table right next to us. Around that table sits the blonde-haired, the blue-eyed guys. They handle the English network. We handle the Navajo code top secret messages. When the first shot is fired on the island, messages start coming in and going out everywhere. They start coming in. Navy sends us runners to stand behind each one of us. Message start coming in, we write it down, coming in Navajo, we write it down in English. We handed out that message over our shoulder to the runner standing behind us 24 hours a day. He takes it up to the bridge, gives it to the general or the admiral. They read it, they respond, the runner brings their message back. If he says Arizona, New Mexico, we send that message back out in Navajo code. If it doesn't say Arizona, New Mexico, it goes to the English network guys. They send that out. That's how the whole system worked until the island is secured. Sometimes the island is secured after 4 days or 1 week. Iwo Jima, the island was not secured until 31 days later. On Okinawa, it took 3 months to secure the island. So we hang on there for 3 months if you were on Okinawa. The Marine Corps assigned at least 80 Navajo code talkers to each Marine division. So each division usually has over 80 Navajo code talkers to provide that communication network that contains top secret and confidential messages. That's how it worked like. On Iwo Jima, 3 Marine divisions landed, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And each division had at least 80 Navajo code talkers. So 3 times 80 is over 200 Navajo code talkers participated on Iwo Jima landing. And one of the messages on that island is what I'm going to show you how it sounds like. The 3 Marine divisions that landed, the 3rd Marine Division down on the southern end where Mount Suribachi, the flag was raised. 4th Marine Division down the middle near the airstrip. 5th Marine Division on the north side, there were some little hills. Well, the 5th Marine Division was in deep trouble on the north side near those hills. They were being fired upon from 3 different directions. They were desperately hanging on for their life in their foxhole. Can't move. Mortar shells were being dropped on them. Machine gun bullets fired at them. So the company commander of that company scribbled a message in English, handed to a Navajo code talker that was assigned to that company. Well, there were the guy that received that message in English was asked to send that message to Beach Command Post asking for help. The code talker receiving that message written in English, dial up the code talkers. There's usually about 6 or 8 code talkers at a beach command post receiving and sending messages to all parts of the landing force. So he dialed one of those code talkers at beach command post, got on the air and sent this message asking for help. This is what he said in Navajo. Tepe ana achipi that is tahi de na sonse kanji tochin sita sa ka hasta na ki shash. I know many of you probably don't know what I said. Well, let's decipher that. what did the code talker said in Navajo code, asking for help. This is what he said in Navajo. If you're Navajo, I see that. Well, I'm sitting here. If you're Navajo and you're listening, what did this guy on Iwo Jima sending message asking for her say in Navajo? This is what he said in Navajo. Sheep, eyes, nose, deer, turkey, onion, sick horse, tea, mouse, 3, 6, 2, bear. That's what he said. Does that sound like asking for help? No, just a bunch of Navajo words. But the Navajo code talker receiving this message at a beach command post writes down as each Navajo word comes across. What did he write down? Sheep, eyes, nose, deer, sick horse? No. He wrote down, send demolition team to Hill 362B. That was the message. On the north side, there were 3 little hills, 362A, 362B, 362C. Beneath 362B was the problem. This company of Marines were in a desperate situation. This message, Navajo code, took 20 seconds. After 20 seconds, Beach Command Post organized a rescue team comprised of tanks, heavy tanks with flamethrowers and other heavy unit out there to save that company of Marines. This is the actual message that was sent. A copy of that message that was sent is in Marine Corps Archive, Washington, D.C. So if you're ever in Washington, D.C., go to Marine Corps Archive and you will see a copy, the original copy of the message that was sent asking for help. So the code that was developed, never broken by the enemy. Yes, they tried. They captured the Navajo and Philippines, but he was in the army. So they made him listen. They taped all these Navajo code messages that we sent in Tokyo. So they sent this poor Navajo to Tokyo to get in front of the communication officers. And they made him listen to what we were saying. Like I said, there's sheep, eyes, nose, deer, all that stuff. So they thought he was lying. So they torture him, short of killing him. They know he's going to break somehow and tell the truth, what we were saying in Navajo. And he was telling the truth. He was telling exactly what we were saying, but it didn't make sense. So the Japanese thought that he was lying. So they kept torturing for 2 years in Tokyo, and the war is over. He survived. After the code was declassified, and we organized Navajo Code Talker Association, he came to our meeting. He was very angry. He said, I don't know what you guys were talking about, but I told the Japanese exactly what you were saying, and they didn't believe me, so they kept torturing me. I suffered. Well, we apologize. Made him an honorary Navajo Code Talker.
Yeah. That's good.
So that's the story of Navajo Code, how it was used, and how it was eventually declassified in 1968. And after that, a lot of media attention. A movie was made by MGM called Wind Talker. They interviewed, at that time there were over 300 of us still alive. As a matter of fact, over a dozen Navajo code talkers were killed in action. A cousin of mine who helped me join the United States Marine Corps was killed on the island of Peleliu, September 15, 8:30 in the morning. The beach temperature about 90 degrees. Their first wave landed at 8:30. They always assign a dozen or more Navajo code talkers to land with the first wave, the first ones to hit the beach, the first one to face the enemy gunfire. Why? Because the command ship wants to know where these enemy gunfires are located. So they always, every landing, they have over a dozen Navajo code talkers to land with the first wave. They give us a map with grid lines for us to memorize. And they tell us, as soon as the landing craft hit the beach, gate goes down, run like hell, hit the deck, and look where the enemy fires are coming from. Look at your map and give us the location, all in Navajo code. Why? Because the enemy is breaking codes. If you sent their gun location in English code, they break it and they'll move their gun position to a new location. But if we send those location in Navajo code, they don't know they're being targeted. That's why they always have at least a dozen or more Navajo code talkers to land with the first wave. And this covers a man, Tom. He's killed. This was his third landing. Machine gun bullets went across here. His head fell off. His body one way, head to. War is ugly. War is bad. Yet today, we have our children, we have our relatives out there somewhere carrying weapons. Why? Why do we do that? Because we love this country. This country means so much to us. All veterans, their relatives, know what it is like to have someone that you love to never be seen again. It hurts. But, as I said, no matter how ugly and bad the war is, we do it because we love this country, because it represents freedom. It represents liberty and peace that we all love. So many never made it home. So many wounded. war. And we'll continue. As a matter of fact, out of 400 Navajo code talkers, there's only 3 of us still alive. Over a dozen were killed in action, more than a dozen wounded. The 3 of us, the oldest one is 107, confined to his home. The next oldest one, 97 years old. I'm the youngest of the 3 surviving Navajo code talkers. I'll be 95 shortly. Only because I joined when I was 15 years old. I lied about my age because I want to fight. This cousin of mine that was killed on Hallelujah, help me. He came home. He had this beautiful Marine Corps blue uniform. I thought he purchased that somewhere. So I said, Tom, how do I get one of those beautiful uniforms you're wearing? He said, you got to join Marines to get one of these. I said, I want to do that. He looked at me and said, how old are you? I said, I'm 15. He said, well, you can't do that. You've got to be at least 17 years old to join the Marines. Well, I said, they don't know. So if you could join, I can join because I can shoot just as well as you do. I can run just as well as you do. Whatever you do, I can do the same thing. Even though I'm 15 years, over 17 years old, I can do the same. You know that. So what's the difference? I want to join. So he and I went to Marine Corps recruiting office, and he signed a piece of paper that said I was 17 years old. That's why it hurts to not see him again after Hallelujah. But, as I said, all of us, no matter what nationality you are, America is not just one race. We have people with German descent, Spanish, Italians, the blacks, Native Americans, name a whole bunch of us, different nationalities. But when it comes to defending the freedom and liberty that we all enjoy, we all come together as one with the talents that each of us have. The blacks have certain talents and skills. Native Americans have certain talents and skills, including the language. Italians, same way. Germans, Americans, it's the same thing. When we all get together as one, we cannot be defeated. We can defend what we love. America. So, last night, fight each other like, you're red or you're blue. We're not colors. We're humans. We love each country and we want to keep it the way it is. And we need to help one another. We need to help each other. And this one little skill that we contribute to the war, our language, have saved thousands of lives in the Pacific and helped win the war. As a matter of fact, Major Connor, United States Marine Corps, with 5th Marine Division on Iwo Jima, wrote a report. That report is the Marine Corps Archive. He said that the first 48 hours of Iwo Jima landing, his unit, that's one division, over 800 messages were sent in Navajo code the first 48 hours. But there are two other divisions with similar Navajo code traffic. So 3 times 800 is over 2,000 Navajo code sent the first 48 hours of Iwo Jima landing. If you do a little math, that means Navajo code going through the air every minute non-stop for 48 hours. That's why Major Connor in his report said, without Navajo, Marines would never have taken the island of Iwo Jima. And that's Major Connor's own word, and copy that report. He's in the Marine Corps Archive. So it's something that we all need to be proud of the fact that America, we have a diverse community. And that diverse community have different skills, and if all these different skills comes together, we cannot be defeated no matter who the enemy is. So let's keep it that way. Let's understand that as long as we want to keep that peace, that liberty and freedom, we got to work together. I have something here for you today. I have this card that talks about Peter MacDonald, and also explains something about where I've been and some of the awards that the Code Talkers received, like the nation's highest medal, the Congressional Gold and Silver Medal. Also have books here. There are several books out there about Navajo Code Talkers. They're all good books, but I like this one. It's a Navajo weapon. Indeed, Navajo Code was a weapon. And the guy that's pictured here, that's my cousin. He was on Hallelujah too. And in here, there's a lot of stories, more detailed stories about different battles. Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Iwo Jima, Guam, Okinawa. They're all in here, detailed of what we did. But most importantly, also in this book, there's a section on Navajo code words that we all learn. My suggestion is you buy one of these books and go to their code section and start talking to each other in Navajo. No one will understand what they're talking about. Better than that, when you get home, go to the code section, get in your easy chair, and go to the code section and send me an email in Navajo code. You know, all these scammers cutting in on a conversation would not understand the word we are talking about. Lastly, names of all Navajo Code Talkers are in here. There's over 400 of us. So I like this book, and my daughter Charity here will take care of you to buy this book, and I'll autograph it for you with your name on it. It makes good gift. I know you have your mama, your papa, your grandparents who may love stories of World War II may also want to get a copy too.